He's telling one.
I mean, he's my mentor. You taught me everything.
See, we've got to balance this out. You got to have women and men. You was telling the engineer that we were the.
It's 10:34.
Yeah, I know, right?
We got women, so we got yes.
Okay. Good morning. We'll get started. We're running a few minutes late this morning. A lot of conversations pre-meeting, and that's good. Like I said, we'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, if you will, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Senator Storm, Senator Turner, Senator Yates, Representative Branscombe, Representative Dietz,
Here.
Representative Huff, Representative McPherson, Representative Palumbo, Representative Smith, Representative Tackett Lafferty, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Blanton, Representative Bowling, Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Co-Chair Upchurch,
Here.
Chair Higdon.
Here. All right. Thank you very much. We do have a new member to the committee. I want to welcome Representative Dietz. Thank you for being here this morning, and welcome to the committee. So with that said, our agenda today, our first up is Secretary Jim Gray. If you'd like to come forward, and everyone knows you, but for you and Kenny, if you will, introduce yourself for the record. And
yes, sir.
The floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jim Gray, Transportation Secretary.
I'm Kenny Bishop, Legislative Director at the Transportation Cabinet.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. Thank you all for inviting us to be with you today. We've got a good agenda. I wanted to just perhaps give an overview of the work that we're doing within the Transportation Cabinet, leading, of course, with safety first in improving our state's transportation infrastructure. That is our top priority as we are addressing the roughly 1,700 projects in the state highway plan. And we are moving ahead very intentionally and vigorously with as many road projects in our planning as we can, as quickly as we can, in the upcoming biennium. Now, of course, that includes the county priority projects, which you all will hear more about today from Commissioner Bobby Joe Lewis. That includes important projects in the high growth counties to keep moving our economy forward and building a better Kentucky as well. So safety is our priority as we implement the other legislation from this year's session as well. We continue to work through nearly 24 pieces of legislation related to transportation, highways, drivers, and vehicle operations. Still early in that process, of course, but for every topic we have been tasked with, we are working vigorously. We're meeting internally with those stakeholders who are appropriately involved and the subject matter experts to draft regulations as they are required and to be ready to get the work done. We're making good progress, healthy progress, as we approach the new fiscal year and the July 15th effective date for bills. So safety is a key component of the work we do every day, from road projects to freight, rail, and waterway operations to budgets and managing the Louisville bridges. As I said, you'll hear about much of that today. But before I turn it over to our team on those topics, I want to thank you all for the work you're doing to keep not just Kentuckians, but our Transportation Cabinet, our Department of Highway workers especially, safe on our highways. The legislature's attention to work zone safety, especially those of you who helped champion that cause this past session, it included several bills that protect our employees. Thank you. Included legislation that protects our workers like Blake Barnes, who tragically we lost just 6 weeks ago today. This young man, only 22 years old, was a volunteer firefighter, a young husband, and the father of 2, with 1 on the way, and he was struck down in a highway work zone. I was there with his family at the funeral home in Hart County. I was there at the cemetery, at the at the gravesite. Many of his colleagues, many of his co-workers were there, as many as more than 24 from districts 4 and 5. They were all wearing high-vis gear, and his wife was as well. I thought of the many things that we've done and are doing to protect Kentucky's public servants on the front lines. Things like better signage and crash cushion trucks, and the new legislation that reinforces the move over or slow down law for work crews, for emergency responders, and for citizens disabled on the side of the road. I'm thankful for that new legislation that amends current law to increase fines and to put teeth into reckless driving in work zones. In addition to fines of $500 or more, drivers now face having their license revoked for violations in work zones. Of course, we want everyone to go home safely at the end of their workday, and these changes will help us achieve that goal. So thank you for your attention to that issue and for your hard work making these legislative changes a reality. It will save lives. But we can't forget Blake Barnes. More needs to be done for those like Blake and for others in our work zones. More must be done to protect Kentuckians, and I urge you to work on that with us. Now let me turn to the county priority projects. We look forward to working with the legislature to deliver these projects that not only will provide needed infrastructure improvements, but will make highways safer for all Kentuckians. I couldn't be more proud that we have a great team working on it. And leading that team, and with me today, is someone that many of you know already. She's dedicated to making sure our counties receive the help they need, and that is Commissioner Bobby Jo Lewis from the Department of Rural and Municipal Aid. And I'll ask Bobby Jo to join me up here right now. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Bobby Jo Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Commissioner Lewis, welcome to the committee, and please identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Bobby Jo Lewis, Commissioner, Rural and Municipal Aid at the Transportation Cabinet. It's an honor to be here this morning to talk to you about county roads. It's always a pleasure, and I want to thank you all for everything you do for the citizens of the Commonwealth every day. As far as the Community Priority Projects Program, I want to assure you that KYTC and Rural Municipal Aid are doing our best to work within the framework and to responsibly react and prepare for implementation of this program pursuant to the legislatively directives that we got in House Bill 265 and HJR 92. We are working on that. Now, as you know, the program does not go into effect until July 1, so we're still in the process of defining directives and solidifying how things are handled. But we have an application form that is complete. It is up on our website now. The application period, we have asked at this point, or the message that we've been giving is that the applications will begin to be received on July the 1st and go through October 15th. Because House Bill 265 requires that we send you all the list on November the 1st. So we ask that they get the applications in by October the 15th so we can have them reviewed and ranked accordingly, and then send the report to you all by November the 1st. When a project is completed, we have a form designed for that that's up on our website, and when the project's completed, you'll get notice pursuant to that form. our staff, our DRMA, that's Rural Municipal Aid. I cut it short a lot. I'm sure you all know probably what that means. But DRMA staff have begun the process of examining each project and preparing documents for MOA creation to begin. And as I said, it doesn't start until July, and we won't have funding available till then. So, are there any questions that we can answer?
Senator Turner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you being here today and explain that. Do you mind if we give direct phone numbers and information of your office?
Oh, absolutely not. No, feel free to. You have my cell phone number? You know what? I learned at the first meeting that I gave it to China. So. I have a card for everyone. Anyone that wants a card, it's got my cell phone number on it, and you feel free to share it with whomever you please. You're welcome.
Thank you. And I guess I have a few questions if I don't see anyone else. Okay, as I guess the applications for the road funds for, I guess, for next year, are you having a lot of those, I guess, are coming in, or is the word out there yet that exactly the way there is some confusion of exactly
Yes.
what we've done, and I was just wondering how that's, where you're at on that, and I guess what you're doing to help us to alleviate some of the confusion.
Yes, sir. I can tell you that the forms are up on our website. Anyone who calls me, that's what I tell them. I have communicated with a number of different people, and I am visiting with all the judges and mayors at the KCJEA, KMCA conference that's coming up the 19th, I think it is, to explain to them how this process is going to work.
And that's something we can work with staff to get that out to all of our judges and mayors. The link to your website and
Yes.
and the proper procedure for. We'll look at your website. We'll copy.
Yes, make
off of-
sure you go to the forms library. That's
Okay.
where all the forms will be. The new ones are at the bottom because they're a higher number.
And that's something we could do. And thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.
And also, there's bridge money that will be available. Do you? And I don't think there was any particular guidance, just other than money, or mentioned the $25 million per year for a bridge program. What's the update on that?
Well, I'm pleased to tell you that we have been inundated with bridge phone calls.
Is that on the website too?
It is. Well, I have to back up here for a minute. The form that we've been working on, we've got a lot of input from the highway side, which I'm eternally grateful for. As y'all know, I'm not an engineer, never claimed to be, don't want to be, But there are some pretty smart people at KYTC, and they've been helping us with that. So I'm proud to say that this has been a joint effort. The form will be up shortly. We got everything finalized, and it's in the formatters workshop, so to speak. So it should come up on the website very soon. That as well the funding will not be available until July. And we've been telling people that. At this point, we need to, I guess, have a solidified process. I can't give you that today, but I have been working on processes and procedures, but we have some people waiting. And I can tell you, I had one judge call and say, when can I apply? And I said, July 1. And he said, where do I find the form? And can I do it at 12:01 a.m.? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I want to be first. So I'm like, okay, that's perfectly fine.
I know Chair Upchurch worked with you quite a bit on the on the excuse me, on the road portion, and I know that money was spent or appropriated rather quickly. So thank you for your help on that. I know it wasn't exactly your plan, but thank you for working with us on that.
I was going to mention that. Mr.
Well, that's okay,
Chairman.
Mr. Secretary.
We're doing our best.
I know, and you have been working with this, and like I
Yes.
said, I know it wasn't exactly your plan,
Right.
but Co-Chair Upchurch has a comment.
And I just like to, I mean, I know this is a new plan, and anytime you do something new, there's going to be some growing pains. But I think one of the things that I've been telling judges in my area is, they don't need to look at this, and it should have never been looked at as a revenue source for their counties. And I think a lot of them are, that didn't necessarily get designated in this first round. Say, well, we didn't get any money. Well, maybe you didn't get money in the last 2 or 3 sessions, or 2 or 3 years, but you will. And so, but I think there's been a misunderstanding all along that county judges have expected that and have used it as a revenue source. And I'm going to be speaking, I think, next week to the county judges and commissioners, and the message that I'm going to give is, you've got flex money, you've got your own, how you prioritize in your own budget, and then this is a system to where it's contingency. So if it's something that you're not able to get to, and it ranks a 10 or 9 or an 8, then the likelihood of you getting something is, I think, going to be greater over a period of time, because there's some counties out there that never got it. Some didn't apply for it. And so I think, we did approximately 70 counties in this first round in House Joint Resolution 92, and hopefully we can get about that number this next time. So it's going to, I think it'll be counties every other year, at least every other year, is going to be receiving some road aid from this program. And and like I said, it was new, and there's going to be some growing pains. We realize that there's some roads in there that may have already been done that we missed when we tried scrubbing the list. But we'll prioritize those counties in the next session. But I think as we move forward, I think it'll be they'll get more used to it, and I think they'll like it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman Upchurch, for your work on that project. Commissioner, you have any further words for us?
No, I mean,
Okay.
anytime I can help.
Okay, well, thank you. You're always
You have my
accessible.
cell phone number.
And if anybody doesn't have the commissioner's phone number, be sure to get that, because it's like I said, she's a good one to have on speed dial. And thank you for your work, Commissioner.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
all.
Secretary Gray, back to you. You have
Yes, sir.
any further?
Well, we'd been asked to also be prepared for questions related to our riverports, our waterways, freight, rail, and airports. The new funding programs for those areas are being developed as we speak, and are for the new fiscal year. Jeremy Edgeworth, who is our coordinator for freight, rail, and waterways, is here today if we do have any questions.
Okay.
So,
Do you want to bring him forward and let him say a few
Sure.
words since you brought him over?
Well, I
While
think-
he's getting settled in, I do appreciate, Mr. Secretary, you mentioned Blake Barnes, and that was a tragic accident, and so I did want to thank you for mentioning that. LaRue County was his home county, which he's a constituent of mine. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, but yes, I get right there. Representative Blanton's, his bill last year for work zone safety was timely. We still have a lot of work to do. We need to work with contractors in the state. We need to make sure that one of the things that I hear about work zone safety is a lot of motorists don't know if it's an active work zone or an inactive work zone, and so we just need to do a better job of I guess, signage, weaponizing them, protecting them a little more as far as the orange barrels and like I said, signs and barriers, everything we can do to protect those workers, because it is important. But I think one of the main things is to make sure that those motorists realize that it is an active work zone, because there's nothing worse, I think, for work zone safety is to have a work zone where it's labeled, slow down, reduce your speed, work zone ahead, and there's never anybody there. And motorists that use that every day get used to it, and so I think that's an important part of it. We have our work cut out for us to make sure that we get those, we work on that issue.
Well, I think that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it if I can just footnote or make an observation that, coming from the, not necessarily in the highway business, but coming from the construction industry myself, not in the highways, but learning a lot about the highway construction industry in the last 4.5 years. I think the major message is slow down and avoid distracted driving. And, these work zones that are often established where work may not be undertaken on a specific day or time, but the Jersey barriers, for example, are set up and can be really limiting, of course, any of the barriers that are set up in the work zones, or cones that are set up in the work zones, can be limiting even when work's not being done. I'll share that I was in Henderson not that long ago, and it was in a constricted area where the Jersey barriers were on both sides, where work was being done for the I-69, and a semi moved over into my lane. Well, there was no place for me to go. So, no place to go. And just a few, even less than a foot, I would say. And it just reminded me, of course, of that, that why slow down is so relevant and so important. And that's what we hope to be communicating even more vigorously as we go down. There's more work being done. There's more repair work being done on our roads today. There's more usage on our roads today. There's more commercial traffic on our roads today. I mean, think of how many packages come to your doorstep now through Amazon or FedEx or UPS. And that's driving the traffic up, of course. So our awareness and that communication is what we consider to be so vital today, and something that we really want to work on. And we appreciate the understanding and working with us on this from the legislature. Thank you.
I agree, and Representative Smith has a question.
These mics aren't working, Chairman. I'll speak up. I apologize. Mr. Secretary, just real quick, we experienced trying to deal with the safety in the last session and maybe the session before. The barrier is the camera system. That's the barrier on getting unified on it. Is there other states that, and I'm sure you look into this, is there other states that use a different type of system that maybe you could bring to the committee to recommend, rather than us just keep hitting the wall on trying to find a solution, but maybe bring us a solution that this cabinet would recommend for safety?
because I can tell you, it just seems like we discuss it and then it just falls, flat because of of trying to get there. But I don't think there's anybody in our side in the caucus that would not be in favor of safety. So if you had some other system that you could bring to us that says, this works, give us ideas that we can run through and see if we can get the majority of our caucus to go with it. I'm just saying it is bad when you sit there and it's necessary, and we hear about deaths, we hear about accidents, and not have a solution. Does that make sense? I'd like to find what is needed, but also it needs to be a consensus that we can all get behind, that we can get done, if that makes sense.
Sure. And we're always want to engage thoughtfully in continuous improvement and in examining benchmarks and best practices in other places. And so we'll double down on that. Mm-hmm. My sense is that, and not my sense, I personally, myself, been involved in the presentations regarding the automated systems and have been impressed with them. And I understand the challenges and the dissent associated with it, but that definitely has become the best. If we're looking at best practices, that seems to be the best practice. But nevertheless, we'll double down on benchmarks.
Well, again, I'm not saying that I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, again, I believe everybody wants safety. We don't want to hear about these young people being killed.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand we have to have a solution, and maybe you give us a list to look at for us to review and say, here's what we found out there. Here's the different options, and then maybe we can, Mr. Chairman, maybe we can come to a consensus on the best use. But anyway, I appreciate your time on it.
Well, I appreciate and recognize and acknowledge that a legislative body is about different points of view, and it's our job to do our best to examine options and alternatives and anything that is available in terms of technology or in terms of, and when I say technology, I mean process. So processes that might be appropriate. So we'll do that.
Let me say this. I can tell you firsthand that the resistance to it is all these systems that we're starting to see are third-party administered. It does not go through our current judicial system, and so that is a problem that we that is an existing problem. And every one that I've seen has been brought to me is a third party that monitors these and like I said, it becomes an issue. So that's that conversation. We can continue that conversation, but I don't want to tell anybody that falls on deaf ears. I just want you to understand the issues involved.
Right.
Please proceed.
All right. So if we want to dial over to our rail, freight, waterways, river ports, airports, we're happy to take any questions. Or Jeremy, you want to give a quick overview of where we are? I've mentioned it in an overview, but you can probably do a better job than I.
I can. Jeremy Edgeworth, I'm the Freight, Rail, and Waterways Coordinator for the
Said he can
Transportation
do a better
Cabinet.
job, right.
I'll do what you ask, sir. So I was asked to provide an update on the House Bill 1 funds that were allocated specifically for the river ports and rail. Similar to Commissioner Lewis, we're in the process of standing up those programs, developing the applications that are needed. We are a little bit further ahead with the Riverport grant program. We do have the application developed for that. We've issued the call for projects for those with the public river ports, and their applications are actually due this Friday. And we will be meeting the end of this month. The Water Transportation Advisory Board will be meeting to review and make recommendations for the projects to be funded through those House Bill 1 funds for river ports. With the rail funds, we're in the process of standing those up. We've had several discussions with the rail industry partners. We've had discussions with my counterpart in Tennessee. They have very similar rail grant programs, so I've kind of gotten their their grant programs to kind of use as a template and see what we can do to something similar with theirs. So we are in the process of standing those up and developing those programs, and we hope to issue the call for applications for those the first part of July or first part of August.
You did a good job explaining it. I see no questions.
Thank you.
How many dollars are we speaking of that we have budget for these grants?
For the Riverports, we have $7.5 million in this current fiscal year. In the coming fiscal year, that's $750,000 for each of our public Riverports. Then there was two separate appropriations. There was a $3.5 million for Paducah Riverport for their Riverport West project, and then $1.3 million for Owensboro Riverport for a waterline loop project. I've been in discussions with both of them, Paducah and Owensboro, about getting the agreements put together for that. They're providing me scopes of work. As far as the rail grant, there's $7.5 million in each fiscal year, I believe it is. There's two different grant programs for rail. The first one is for preservation of existing rail infrastructure. That's just for the Class 2s and Class 3s to apply for. And then the second program is for industrial access. That's open to anybody that owns a rail spur, whether it's preserving a rail spur, installing a rail spur. That one's open to anybody that owns a rail spur. So that one's going to be a little bit larger of a call for applicants, because we have a lot more applicants for that versus the short line preservation is just our Class 2 and Class 3 railroads. So, but we are working on getting those programs stood up.
What looks like the Transportation Cabinet and General Assembly made these non-highway transportation systems a priority, because that's $15 million for rail. I think we had previous budgets, 1.4 million, 1.2 million.
1.6 for the rail grade crossing program,
Right.
and then $500,000 for the Riverports.
I remember that 500,000 for Riverports, and that's a big boost in funding and priority for those. So,
And they are very grateful for it. As soon as you all put that into legislation, they started calling me immediately about how do we get access to this. So that's why we've gone through the grant process. That's why we've already done the call for projects. And we're hoping to have those decided by the end of the month, because they want access to their funds so they can start improving their infrastructure at the ports.
okay, thank you very much. That's right, Mr. Secretary. That he did very well.
Well, yeah, I introduced it better than I can, and he agreed. That's right. Thank you, Chairman.
Back to you, Mr. Secretary. A couple
Yes,
couple issues that have been brought up and we talked about yesterday was CAVIS, and we know that still working through those issues. I know that was a big topic yesterday. I did get an email this morning that they were talking about for these rebuilt titles. They're still working on for mail-in and drop-offs. They're still working on March, and for emails and fax, they're working on April. And I know your crew is working very hard to catch that up. And that was a topic of conversation yesterday about I think that's one part of CAVIS that you've got work to do, and I know your team is working on that. So. You want to give our group just a little update on that, since we did talk about it yesterday, and it is a priority for you all to get that taken care of.
Yeah, well, they're obviously in a system shift and changeover like this that involves so many records, millions literally. I think Chairman Blanton mentioned yesterday about just the significance of a system changeover like this, and we all know that when you go through something as significant as this one, that there's going to be some challenge and some difficulty. Now, working with the clerks, yes, right out of the gate there was the challenges, frustrations. A lot of that was anticipated. There was a lot of training that took place. The clerks that have assimilated to the new system perhaps more fluently or faster are now working with the other clerks. And our team, this system was built internally after going through three vendors, three outside vendors, and realizing that it was not efficient, it was not working efficiently, or was not going to. The anticipation of its implementation was going to be less than awkward, less than effective. And that's why we took it on. Now, I just want to say, I've learned over time in business and in management that you hire people with talent. You hire managers who are going to manage well. And Heather Stout is someone that I said yesterday, she's our IT director in the cabinet, and it's been her project for the last many years. And Heather is one of these people in the public sector that I tell people in the private sector that you would hire any day of the week, because that's the level of talent that she has. And yet she's committed to public service, and she's committed to executing on a project like this. And she's an extraordinary troubleshooter. That's the words that we used to use back in the day in management. Somebody who's really effective as a good manager is a troubleshooter and a problem solver, and that's what she is. Now, does that mean that we don't expect and don't have the problems just like on these titles? Yes, and we have increased the resources, the staffing to deal with it. Have we overcome yet? No. But thanks to a lot of dedication and the feedback that we get, which is important, that is a level of encouragement too. Then we will overcome it.
Well, thank you. And I know your staff has been very responsive to when we call in with an issue.
It's just a big, that team has a lot on their plate.
Yeah.
With the vision testing coming up, it just adds to it.
Yeah. Representative Branscombe has a question.
Thank you, Chairman. Good seeing you. Back on the title, and I know you dealt with this. This was talked through yesterday in committee, but I was hearing from constituents on this prior to Cavis, the transition over, that there was a delay, and so my hope is that, and I guess I'll say my trust is that if there was a delay before the transition over to Cavis, that we're not exacerbating that and making that even more of a delay, having to deal with Cavis and on top of that existing delay that was there. But you and I both come from the construction world, and if we get behind on a project, we double down and try to get caught back up. And I hope, and like I said, I hope and trust that that's the direction that we're going to be going with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Branson.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, and a little history on Cavis, and especially for Representative Dietz, new to the committee. Cavis, we've been talking about Cavis. It goes all the way back to when Ernie Fletcher was governor, and I served in the House with Representative Upchurch. It's been a long time we've talked about Cavis, so it's finally coming to fruition, and
not without some pain.
There's light in the tunnel. We're hoping it's not a train.
It's not a train coming in our direction, right?
And this is a budget review committee, and I wanted to mention a couple other things that were in the budget that you're well aware of. Your team worked with us on this. At regional offices and driver's license, we did appropriate money for 3 new regional offices, and I know that's in the works. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Also, we work at the Kentucky State Police. I'm very proud of them. We work with them and your folks. They're going to do 5 counties in the state. They're going to select 5 counties, and they're going to do the skills test in the county twice a month in 5 counties as a pilot project. Hopefully that'll work out, and we can expand that in the next budget to more counties and try to help out these youngsters that miss school to take a day off to go to the regional office. Also, there's money in the budget for a new driver's license system, and hopefully that implementation will go a little smoother than Cavis. But I understand our system now is held together with duct tape and paper clips, so that hopefully we'll see some progress on that as we move forward, and something off the shelf that we can maybe something as simple to help out with the some of the issues we have, where we can do the permit testing in more locations, and we're restricted now to just what the state police can do, but hopefully in the future with this new system we can do that, and that is all that is contained in the budget, and like I said, sometimes those things move pretty fast and not everyone is aware of that, so wanted to bring that forward today.
Yes, sir.
And mention
Thanks
that.
for illuminating it.
Well,
Yeah.
they're important issues. I think
Yes.
Senator Turner had his hand up there or was you waving at somebody or?
That's 3 days of school.
Oh, okay. Well, and that's if they pass that written test and the driving test on time. I had one lady to tell me that she took her student 5 times to the regional office. Anyway, I think he finally got it right. Any other questions for Secretary Gray? Any closing
I was
remarks?
just
I'm
going
gonna
to
let you off the hot
are you
seat.
going to go off? Are you going to go to the next topic? Now? Cash management.
Yeah, okay. Well, Senator Turner, you had something to add for.
If you want to go to the last topic, I'll ask him at the end.
Well,
Okay. All right.
are we going to do cash management system
Yes,
overview?
Robin
okay.
Brewer.
Well, before you ask Robin to come up here, I want to, as a bit of an introduction, just say, and many of you all have been on this committee and know Robin from before, but this is another shout out to an extraordinarily talented person that we have working in the transportation cabinet and in state government. And before Robin comes up here, I wanted to offer that as my introduction.
Well, the lady that controls the money is always
That's
very important.
bit of an influence, right?
Yeah. While she's coming up, Robin, while you're heading up, I did want to ask you, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Secretary, before you get away, I got a question for you. On bids that are coming in now, I know as we did the road plan, Representative Upchurch and myself noticed that how a lot of these projects that have been in the budget for a few years, we did quite a bit of step up on the cost of those. I'm just wondering what are you seeing as the bids are starting to come in? Are they as high as we anticipate them being, or has the market settled in some?
Well, we are dealing with escalated costs, and I would not say right now that across the board that all projects are coming in over budget, because that's not the case. We've adjusted our estimates, and we've adjusted the budgeting for some of those projects. Now, there is anxiety about our larger projects. I've described it. What we have today is underway in the construction, and it's the golden age of construction. It's arguably a better period for the industry than it has been, even including after World War II. So there is and Representative Branscombe could perhaps amplify or elaborate on it. But so, what we're doing is we're doing our best to deal with it. But we can offer more perhaps on that as we go downstream.
Can a quick update on our mega projects, our grant applications?
Well, I would describe it as a full court press, that we are doing all we can, and we appreciation to the General Assembly for the incentive, the $300 million for the incentivizing for the Mountain Parkway and the I-69 grant proposals, the applications that we've made. You know, I'm finding every piece of wood I can around to knock on. So I'm not going to jeopardize things by saying that I feel good or anything like that. But I think we have done the best we could, and there is appreciation for we have done and we are continuing to do the best we can to advocate for these grants. And I will tell you that I am absolutely certain that the conditional funding that was put into the budget by the General Assembly, and after the request, of course, of the administration, but we all appreciate that very much, and it has made, I feel like it has made a difference, and it is noticed. That's a long way of answering your question.
No, I do want to mention that, you know, a few years ago we had a conversation about grants, and Kentucky received 0 grants, and the reason was other states started putting more skin in the game.
That's right.
And our 20% just didn't get us anywhere.
That's right.
And I think we're in the 50+ percentile match on these 2 mega projects at
Close to 53.
53%.
Yeah, we have, I would characterize as very competitive. Again, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic. There's a lot of competition for the several billions of dollars in these grants. But, you know, thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully
sir.
we've given you the tools to get that and bring that money
Appreciate
home
it.
for us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Robin, please identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
My name is Robin Brewer. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Budget and Fiscal Management in the Transportation Cabinet. So I'm here today to talk about cash management. It's going to be very brief, I promise you. First, I want to give a little bit of history about, you know, how we started cash management, what we used to do before the cabinet operated on a cash management basis. So beginning with the enactment of the 2000-2002 biennial budget, the General Assembly established the Pre-Financing Road Projects Program, authorizing the cabinet to develop and implement a program to accelerate projects contained in the biennial highway construction plan. The program permitted the cabinet to initiate work on highway projects in excess of available budget authority by employing a cash flow financing program. In accordance with the General Assembly's ongoing authorization for the program, the cabinet has used the road fund cash balance to accelerate highway projects. The 2002-2004 biennial budget added the requirement of the cabinet to maintain a minimum road fund cash balance of $100 million. Prior to fiscal year 2000, the cabinet managed the highway program on an obligation basis by setting aside the entire cost of a highway project phase at the time work was approved to begin. Typically, highway projects take a number of years to complete. Therefore, a considerable cash balance accumulated in the road fund as project dollars waited to be spent. The road fund cash balance did not represent free, uncommitted funds, but rather funds on deposit until expenses became due over time. Using the cash flow financing approach, the cabinet has used the road fund cash balance to expedite the start and completion of highway projects. The cabinet has developed cash management practices and tools to forecast and monitor cash activity on an ongoing basis. The goal is to maximize available resources for the delivery of services while ensuring funds are sufficient to meet current obligations. The legislation requires that the cabinet ensure cash is available to meet expenses while also operating within enacted budget appropriation. The most critical cash management practice in terms of controlling future cash outlays is determining which 6-year highway plan projects are authorized for funding and when work is to begin. Oversight of this process is a responsibility of what we call the Authorization Review Team, or ART. And it consists of members from various areas of the Cabinet, including the Secretary's Office, State Highway Engineer's Office, Office of Program Management, and the Office of Budget and Fiscal Management. The group meets regularly to do three things. One, review monthly actual and projected revenues and expenditures and resulting actual cash balances versus projected cash balances, as well as discuss adjustments and assumptions made to the cash model. They also discuss proposed authorizations pertaining to all phases of the 6-year highway plan, and they examine funding options in light of known highway system needs, safety concerns, and economic development consequences of funding decisions. Historical charts that I have presented at times to this committee in the past have shown the peaks and valleys or cyclical nature that the cash balance has throughout the year, based on the timing of road fund revenues deposited and yearly cash outflows. For example, road fund cash is typically at its lowest point in the latter part of the month because the largest revenue component of road fund revenues, which is our motor fuel tax, is usually deposited in the last couple days of the month. In addition, normally the cash balance builds from January to May each year. Conversely, the cash balance typically declines from June to December due to construction season. The cash model is always being adjusted and changing with the more information that we have, allowing it to continue to be an ongoing useful tool for leadership in making decisions. And that's all I have for you today.
Okay, that sounds very good. I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The, of course, the talking about the fuel tax shows up at the end of the month. When does our federal money? How do they? We get what, about $1 billion a year from the feds. How do we receive that? That's not in a lump sum, is it?
No, it's actually on a reimbursement basis. So
Okay.
all of our federal money works on a reimbursement basis. So that means that the road fund has to incur that cost, obviously, and then request reimbursement. We do typically weekly billings on Fridays. So then usually we get that money in, typically either that following Tuesday or Wednesday. But again, everything is on a reimbursement basis.
Wow, that's impressive. You could get that type of turnaround from a government agency. It's federal government. Okay. Something I've always wondered about, and so we have projects. You can look at, when we're doing the road plan this year, the biannual road plan we did a couple of years ago. A lot of those projects never moved. Of course, I know we over-program, but as a project kind of just drops out of the picture because not every project we put in the road plan ever, actually gets built. Is that part of the cash management system? Is that how does that work?
So in our model, and just so you know, because the fact that, just as you asked a minute ago about the federal monies, since we do incur costs first and then get reimbursed by the federal government, that does impact obviously our cash balance on a regular basis. So we include anything that has some form of impact on the road fund into our model, any kind of expense. So that includes our federal expenditures as well. So basically what we do in our model, we are looking at all the projects that we currently have on the books at all times. We are trying to forecast how those projects are going to spend over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. We also know at that point in time, we're also adding new projects on. It's a constant process. You're paying some off, you're adding more on. So in our model, we not only have included what we currently have on the books when we're doing our model, but we also add on a layer of what do we think we can afford to add in new projects. to our model to stay within, our bottom line. And so we use the same analysis that we're doing with projects that we currently have on the books. We develop what we call a factor or a spin down rate, a burn rate, whatever you want to call it, to estimate how long it's going to take to spin things down. Well, we use that same factor with projects that we're putting on the books. So we're determining on when we think they're going to go on the books and then when we're going to start to project expenditures. Now, granted, when you're looking at trying to come up with a spin down of projects years out, it's something you have to constantly monitor and make sure that your assumptions and your factor are accurate. So we look at this typically every 2 years when we're working on the highway plan. We look at that factor. We look at all the types of projects that are on the books currently. We look at historical spend to try to come up with how we're going to forecast what we think the expenditures are going to be in the future. But then every month when we meet for this ART meeting, we look at what did we forecast last month? Where did we come in that month? And so we're monitoring to make sure that our factor is pretty much accurate. If we see that it's off base for a month or two, then we go back in and we start looking at that factor again and see how we need to make adjustments. So, this model truly gets used and just constantly changes with the more information that we have. But to answer your question, we do build in how many projects we think we can put on the books out of the highway plan. Now, we're not picking specific projects. We're just using a dollar amount to help determine leadership how much capacity we think we have throughout the year to put more projects on the books.
I guess 2 final questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One, 100 million is, you can't go below 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Just a ballpark figure, what does that account look like today?
I think we're a little over 500, and that sounds high. But as I mentioned, we have peaks and valleys. We're getting ready to start spending a lot of money. June, we have a very large debt service payment for our Turnpike Road Fund bonds. It's over $100 million. We'll start making our revenue sharing payments. We're starting into construction. We'll have several months where we may even have 3 contractor payments. So over the next several months, we will be spending a lot of money. So we have to build that cash balance up so that we can withstand those outflows.
One of the figures several years ago, and I haven't heard an update, we try to get $1 billion a year out the door. What is that total today with inflation and what we have in the road plan? Is it still $1 billion plus?
Are you talking about billion in lettings?
Lettings, yes.
Is that? I'll let Mike answer that one.
Mike, like nobody knows you, please introduce yourself for the record. And
glad to do that, sir. I'm Mike Hancock, Deputy Secretary for the Cabinet, and in relation to the question about our annual lettings, several years ago we started targeting $1 billion as just a way of setting a goal out there that we could work toward, and we've been successful in large part in meeting that goal. Last couple of years, as prices have escalated, we have not adjusted the goal necessarily, even though we're hitting about 1.1, 1.2 billion. So this year, at this point, after the May letting, we're sitting at close to $500 million. So we're on target again for another $1 billion year, and possibly a $1 billion, $1 billion, $2. Just depends on how things go. If 1 or 2 of these really large projects go, it could be even higher than that. But the billion was just $1 billion a year was just a way to set a target out there and make sure that we're working hard to deliver all we can.
okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll move along. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Next up is Amanda Spencer, Assistant State Highway Engineer. Amanda, you're Amanda, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself for the record and please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Amanda Spencer, Assistant State Highway Engineer with the Transportation Cabinet. And thank you sincerely for the opportunity to provide you with an update on our new partners, our new vendors that are helping us to toll the Louisville bridges. In particular, I want to focus today on the vendors that are operating the back office and the customer service operation. Believe it or not, we are coming up on 8 years of tolling this project. And just, I know it's front of mind, but just a reminder that it's very much a bi-state effort with our partner, Indiana, 50-50 all the way with Indiana. The back office and customer service elements are critical components to this all-electronic tolling effort. And in 2020, at the direction of the Kentucky-Indiana Joint Board, the states published a request for proposals to reprocure these elements, the back office and the customer service provider. And we did this, we carried this procurement out in one part due to performance issues with the original provider, but also because these procurements and system developments take considerable time, and our contract with the original provider was expiring. It expired in December of 2023. At the same time that we were carrying out that procurement, we were working towards a re-procurement of the roadside elements, because the cameras, sensors, and all the equipment that you see out there on the road, those were approaching the end of their life cycle. And for that procurement, we hired TransCore. They went live in December of 2023, and that has gone pretty well. My focus here today and my sense of your interest here today is more on the back office and that customer service side. The states very much wanted to use the lessons learned in our early years of tolling to improve the system and the operation and the experience for a customer. Now, transitions of this size and complexity are challenging. I want to acknowledge that we have had our challenges with this transition, but we have acted and we have seen swift improvements as a result of those actions. That's what I want to focus on this morning. Now, Quarterhill, they're formerly known as Electronic Transaction Consultants, ETC. They were hired by the states through a bi-state selections process that focused on both qualifications and price, focused a little bit more there, more heavily weighted on qualifications. They're based out of Frisco, Texas. They do have other prominent tolling projects, including Harrison County, Toll Road Authority in Houston, and they were recently hired for the Easy Pass Hub project related to interoperability in the eastern part of the country. Quarterhill was selected from a group of 9 teams, 9 proposers, and we executed that contract. The states executed their contract in June of 2021, and that's when that system development began. Their scope includes a multitude of things, providing transponders for our customers, processing those transponder transactions when customers cross the bridges, identifying plates when customers don't have a transponder, and then, of course, the owner of those plates, invoicing those owners, operating a local call center. That was a new requirement with this provider, that they operate the call center locally, and 2 walk-up centers, which we did have before, one in Kentucky and one in Indiana. They took those over. Of course, servicing the website, answering customer emails and disputes. Now, Quarterhill went live with the new back office in September 1st of last year, about 9 months now. And as I said, challenges were certainly expected. This is a complex undertaking. We see about 95,000 crossings a day or transactions, 35 million a year. Even in a very typical non-transition environment, we can get up to 1,900 phone calls a day. Millions of records migrated as part of this transition. And we did, and I sense you know that we did. We saw historic customer service needs shortly after go live. We saw call wait times get well up over an hour, and of course that is unacceptable. So in response to that unacceptable service for our customer, the Bi-State Joint Board came together pretty swiftly and acted to provide funding so that a temporary overflow call center could be established where about 50 additional agents would be set up to start answering the phones, but also to provide additional wages for the local agents. A lot had changed since the time that this had been put on the street, so to provide additional wages to help with recruitment and retention of those new local customer service agents. I am pleased to say that we have seen dramatic improvement because of the joint board's investment. The average speed of answer in April was 7 minutes for the month compared to 32 minutes in December. Now, again, remember I said sometimes it would get over an hour in December, but on average, customers were waiting 32 minutes in December. That was down to 7 minutes in April. Mondays are really busy, our busiest day. And on the Monday before Memorial Day, for the first time ever on a Monday, we did not have a call wait time. Last week, we answered 8,137 phone calls. The average wait time was well under 2 minutes, and we answered 2,016 emails. And Kentucky and Indiana are absolutely lockstep in our commitment. We're working diligently every day with our partner, Quarterhill, to see additional improvements through. Day to day, what that looks like, working with our toll services advisor, we monitor for and help to both identify and prioritize any system issues. We participate in the testing of those fixes. We QA phone calls and other inquiries, and we collaborate with Quarterhill on process improvements that are born out of that customer feedback that we hear. And last, I would just say we intend to stay vigilant on those fronts. We know more improvements are needed, and we're committed to seeing those through.
Amanda, one quick question. I know we're running close on time. Collections, they fell way behind, I think, in the beginning. Are we caught up?
That's right. We're doing pretty good. I happened to check yesterday, and the last report I had was through May 15th. We were down about, I believe, 11% on the year still, which we had expected to continue to catch up. But we were at, for the Kentucky portion, $62.3 million through May 15th. So we're in a fine position, but everything's just as expected, if not a little bit better than expected.
Okay. We do have Senator Turner has a question for you, and we'll see if that might be our final question of the day.
Yes, sir.
No, Mr. Chairman, I should probably ask my questions of Mr. Hancock.
That would be fine. Thank you, Mike.
Sir.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. I'm a senator from the 29th district, and we've been working with the transportation department in District 12. Newspaper article about roads in Letcher County which got flooded bad, and my staff communicated with the chief engineer who said give us for 34-1, 5, 932. And then I get a email from one of the persons that's a school board member and also ran against me.
Any other questions? I do have one final thing. I understand that Robin is retiring. Is that correct? This could be her last meeting.
She, yes, we had decided today, we actually talked about whether to announce that today, and we,
Well, there's no secrets in Frankfurt. It just takes time for everybody to find out about it.
well, Secretary wanted to, I think he wanted to make that announcement and to do it right. So I will acknowledge that there's a strong rumor that Robin is retiring, and we intend to follow up with you at another date when we can do that.
Robin,
justice.
you're hiding behind the pole. Could you, Robin, from this committee and the General Assembly, thank you for your work over the years. I'm sure we'll see you again somewhere in another career. You're far too young to retire. And on behalf of this committee, the Budget Review Subcommittee, and the Transportation Committee of the General Assembly, thank you for your work and dedication to this job, and thank you for all you've done for us. There's no media at this, so maybe it won't leak out, and the secretary, we didn't steal his thunder, okay? Thank you all. Any other business? Senator Storm. I'll register your attendance, yes, sir. But we'll put you down as tardy, okay? All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned.